I'm Katie, General Manager here at ADAC, and we are so thankful to have everyone here for our Day 2 of Discover ADAC Fall Market. Thank you for being here. What a fun crowd. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone to grab a copy of the event guide. We have some more events going on this afternoon, as well as a full day tomorrow, so I want to make sure that everybody's registered for the things that they want to attend over the next day and a half. But also, one other really important thing in this event guide is a list of all of our new showrooms and our newly renovated showrooms and our new suite of 242 design studios. That's 12 firms who now call ADAC their home every day for their design firms. So go check everything out. I also want to let everybody know that y'all good? KR Steak Bar has a new restaurant next door, Krog Bar, Coal Fire Pizza. So go check that out. They're open for lunch and dinner, so maybe a cocktail after work or some pizza. So enjoy that or his other restaurant, KR Steak Bar. Have some fun with us this week on social media. We love seeing what everyone is doing. Tag us. At ADAC Atlanta is our handle. Discover ADAC is our hashtag. And then every designer that's speaking on the panels, all of our media partners, and all of our showrooms handles are also in this event guide. So tag everyone, have fun, we'll reshare, and let's show the world what we're doing this week in Atlanta. I want to thank Steve McKenzie for our gorgeous stage decor. Of course, everything was sourced from ADAC, so if you want to know about any of the pieces on stage, there's a resource sheet in the back of the presentation room. And I want to, first of all, thank Century for bringing us today's presentation. We're going to go, after this presentation, upstairs to Suite 212 for a reception and book signing, so please plan to join us there. I want to thank our media partner today, that's Business of Home, and I have to stop for a minute and say that this has been a long road to get here, but Business of Home does our Southeast Designer of the Year video every single year, and we are so grateful to have that partnership with them. But we have really wanted to have Dennis Scully here for a very, very long time.
For obvious reasons, right? I mean, yeah. Sure.
So I ran into Dennis earlier this year. I put it out in the universe and said, we're going to get you to Atlanta. And guess what? Here we are. So I believe in putting things in the universe, and they happen. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Dennis Scully, who is the host of the Business of Home podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And Katie, can I just tell you that whenever I ask people what is it that makes ADAC so fabulous, their first answer is you and your team. So, I mean, for you bring this place to life, so congratulations to you on that. And it is yes, big round of applause, because it takes a lot to bring energy, right, and vibrancy to a design center, and they certainly do that here. So I'm thrilled to be back. So I am Dennis Scully from Business of Home, and rather than me going through a big, long introduction for the two illustrious guests that are sitting very close together on the sofa, which I think is so sweet and tender, right? I feel like we're maybe on a date with them, right? We'll see how it feels. Bobby, let's tell the good people about yourself, just so that they get a sense. Everyone knows who you are. Sure, they're here to see you, but tell us about yourself, Bobby.
Oh, gosh. I am primarily an architect for houses all over the country and beyond. And so I get to wake up and think house all day long and night, really since I was a little boy. And, if you threw a ball to me, it wouldn't occur to me to catch it. It would probably just hurt my feelings.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot to explore there. Maybe we'll get into that later. Okay. And Tara, what about you? Can we throw a ball to you, or no? Does that hurt your feelings?
So really, I wasn't into sports, but I was into shopping. So my grandmother had a PhD in shopping, and
Good for her. I like her already.
She would. The school would come and they'd say, "Your grandmother's here. We're going to let you go early," and I'd say, "So what's going on?" And she'd say, "Oh, New Stats is having a sale on pearls," and I thought I'd come.
That is reason enough to skip education,
I thought I'd
right?
come and get you early. So frankly, it's in my DNA. I'm a shopper. I work in the fields in Europe. I've worked there since '94, and then I fell in love with furniture. So that is the reason I'm here for Century Furniture. We launched a collection with them, about 80 pieces, so I'm very proud of that for them, and I'm very proud of them as a sponsor. So.
Well, and what a good marketer you are too, obviously. Fantastic. Well, it is lovely, and it's interesting because I was asking some of the members of the audience what they really wanted to hear and what they wanted to hear about, and some of the younger people in the audience who are just getting started themselves really did want to hear a little bit of how you each came up in the world. And Bobby, I'm looking at you because I would love to hear from the early non-ball catching days, what it was like.
You know, I mean, I started in Montgomery, Alabama, and without the magazine industry, I could have died under the porch there. But instead,
thankfully, that didn't happen.
They found me, and they put me out there so that people could find me, and then as the editors would progress in their careers, they would change magazines. And so then you would be baited to 2 different magazines, and that would go on and on. And so the publishing of the work was the way that we got found. And as an architect, I realized immediately that if you didn't have good interiors, your work would never be published, because there was no vehicle for it. There are a few magazines that architects read, but architects aren't going to hire me. You know, so interiors became a premier importance, and already was a very premier interest anyway.
Okay, well, we'll hear more from Bobby, but Tara, tell us about you and the early days.
I agree with Bobby. I went from fashion to furniture, and I took all of my money, which wasn't very much, and I kept one house note in the bank, and I took off to Europe and filled a container and shipped it into a mini storage. I just moved to New Orleans. All my family lives in Austin, Texas, but into a mini storage on Chapatula Street. It was a 10 by 30. I still drive by it, and I have the fondest memories. And I just did word of mouth back then. You know, we didn't have emails or mailing lists, so I talked to antique dealers regionally and designers. And when I rolled up the container door, everything sold in 10 minutes. So I thought I could be onto something. And so I kept importing more. I got larger warehouses at the Port of New Orleans. But, you know, it was the magazine, the editors, that I believe Lisa Newsom changed my life. Yeah. Sure. They called me one day. I was unloading a container. I had ketchup on my shorts from Burger King, you know, glamorous work.
Sure, we've been there, yeah.
So they pull up with all these editors, and they're in my warehouse, and then they gave me a call back, and they said, could we shoot your warehouse, and we'd like to go to your home as well. So it was the second Victorian that I had purchased in New Orleans. They go to my home. I didn't think a thing about it. And they called me back, and they said, we want to shoot it. And then my home made the cover, and and the warehouse. I remember calling them and thanking them for mocking it up to show me what the sample would be. I had no idea I had literally made the cover. That's how just out of touch I was with that. And so then that just evolved to design projects, because then I had people from Connecticut that called. They were my first design clients and said, please come to Connecticut. And then I went on to do more and more, and then it was basically the shelter magazines that opened the door for me to even be in design, because I would call myself a reluctant designer, because I'd say, I'm too busy in Europe. I really don't have time for that. But then I realized that it was a vehicle for the containers and showing the product and showing people how antiquity in mid-century actually worked well in a current home.
Which came to be almost a language that you came to use in your work, and some of the audience members are actually eager to hear about this getting to the soul of your clients, and I want to talk to both of you about that. But it seemed like so much of what you were picking over in Europe was really resonating in a big way with people here, and I wonder what you think was drawing people to you, those good people from Connecticut, the Nutmeg State. What was getting them so excited?
I think it was the one-offs, because what I learned from being in the fields in Europe, so I started importing in '94, and I would ship 40-foot containers. So my most prolific year, I can get about 200 to 300 pieces inside a container. And the most I would export in a year were 16 40-foot containers. So what happened was I trained my eye when I was in Europe. I would be in the field. I felt like I could recognize a good patina and original carving at 4 in the morning with no flashlight or a dim flashlight. But so I think that's what they were really attracted to, Dennis. They wanted that one-off aspect. And it just, I wasn't importing brown furniture when brown furniture was important in design.
How's brown furniture doing these days? Can we get a quick read on brown furniture? Poor brown furniture, right?
I say
mean,
it's making a comeback.
Is it?
Yes,
okay, good,
totally.
good. I'm glad. Do you feel that way, Bobby? Do you see brown furniture out there? Not in your projects.
I do. I mean, I do think the antiques market, is. I think we're finally turning back to it. It's been 20 years of just silence, for the dealers, and I think our interiors, as for the most part, are don't have the same characters they did in the late 90s. And so I think we're taking baby steps, toward learning to be connoisseurs and collectors of things. But we're in its infancy again, don't you think? I mean, I don't think that, I think the public is just re-entering that realm after turning around and looking the other way for a long time.
Do you think those beige interiors bullied brown furniture away? Is that part of it? Yeah?
You
can tell me, Bobby. You can tell me. I know you have thoughts.
I really think that the non-committal sort of ultra beige interior,
You know what he's talking about.
basically is medical. It's
Say more.
It's really, I think, for a world that is now splitting us in so many different directions, and we are bombarded with information, and we have the habit that we can't put down getting it either. We've taught ourselves to have all of this coming at us that sometimes, I think in the last years, the first safe place seemed to be a place that was more silent and kept its mouth shut. And so I think color took a hit. I think antiquity took a hit. I think basically it's just, a jar full of cotton balls is really what everybody was wanting to go home to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a really interesting read, and I think you're right. I mean, as Bobby was saying, and he and I were talking about this recently, it almost seemed medicinal in a way, that people just needed some calm area because the world didn't feel, and certainly still doesn't feel, very calm. And so I get it when you frame it that way. But hopefully it's changing a little bit. Tara, what do you think? Because you're not about beige interiors, for heaven's sakes.
Oh my, I love beige. You know, there's something so calming
Oh, there you go.
a
Okay.
neutral.
Okay.
But I have to say, you know, we live in a very colorful world. And especially, it just really depends on the client for me.
Yes.
I am trying to interpret what they've asked me for. And then, you know, because I believe collecting is part of a journey, it should be part of the design. So if they're avid colorists in art or whatever, I'm going to try and incorporate that and interpret that into, you know, what I'm working in. But yes, I love soothing beige.
Okay. Well, so let's get into helping clients to tell you what they really want and what they live. And I'm totally teasing beige for all the representatives of beige in the audience, okay? I'm just poking fun. It's just an amusing time because there is a lot of beige. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that I've driven Ivory Bouclé into its space, and I hope that I've contained that a little bit. But I do think I want to hear, Bobby. You and I were talking recently about. So because you're an architect and you are building someone a new home, and that is a huge undertaking, right? And when they come to you, they've often tried everything else,
Right.
right? So tell me about when they show up to you and want a new home.
Well, in certainly a lot of cases, I think people have been looking for it for decades, and they can't find it. And so they've done a lot of trial and error, and they've tried to renovate their way there, and they might get close, but it just didn't have the staying power. And I think as you get older, the only thing that really is going to scratch the itch and settle the dust and put you at ease is integrity. Something that is not, you know, band-aided into where the first sentence is, oh, you should have seen it before. I got it. You know,
You think it's bad now? Oh, you should have.
yeah, the story's already bad, you know, with that one line, and they all start that way. I had a high school friend named Mark, and you could tell Mark was gay from the moon, essentially. As soon as you could tell it was a human being, you could tell he was gay. And Mark came back from the trailer plant one summer where he had worked the summer, and he said, this is my fiance, Brenda. She's on a diet. She's not wearing much makeup.
Ouch! Ouch! May no one ever introduce you that way.
So I got on the phone immediately to Kenny and Renee, and I said, get a load of this. I said, what did he say? He said, they said he was on a diet and she wasn't wearing much makeup. Of course, she was standing right there the whole time. But anyway, somehow that relates to what we were talking about.
Certainly it does. It was worth it, even as a detour. It was worth it.
Yeah.
I have to mention this because Bobby was in New Orleans and he was working with someone. We had worked with their family for years, and Bobby called me and he said, Tara, don't let them buy that house. It's a dog. And I thought, you know, it takes honesty. It really does when you're working with a client. And, you know, obviously, who wouldn't want to hire him to renovate your dog? But really, you want to hire him to build this house that has integrity.
Yeah.
And that is a forever home, a legacy home. That's really it.
Yeah. He bought it. And we clobbered it to death. And I don't know how he ever got the approvals that were needed to do that in the historic district, but he got them and we did it. And it is a much better house now. But they don't always listen.
But tell me a little bit, Bobby, about when they are finally ready to make what is a sizable investment today, both in money and time, and I don't know how much you really brace them for all of that in your early conversations, but tell me a little bit about what we'll call the onboarding process with you.
Well, I mean, I think if you've exhausted all your options and you've never been able to find the house that your heart recognizes, and you've never been able to renovate to get fully there, the only option left is the hardest, scariest one, and that is to build a house. And so you are really jumping off a cliff by comparison there. It is not a known thing. It's not even necessarily a known cost or a known timing. You know, all of those things, the wheels come off the cart on that sort of thing, historically, always. And so it is the scariest route of the ABC question. You know, it's the scariest one. But done correctly, it is the most rewarding and long-lasting one. And it will change your life because it will calm your soul to swim in the waters of something that you intrinsically recognize, and that other people can enter that realm where they couldn't necessarily enter your chest, but they can enter your rooms, and they can enter this vessel to share with you, and it becomes your finest offering in the world. Because when you do that, there is no place in the whole world that anyone else can go that makes them feel like that. There are no other options. If you want to feel like you felt when you were there, you have to go there.
I want to feel like that, right? Right? I mean, I'm there. I'm starting the GoFundMe campaign so that I can hire Bobby as my architect. Got a long way to go on that one, but hopefully.
My partner, Blake Weeks, will be, flipping through the magazines, and the comment that comes fairly regularly that I love the most is he says, "I want to go to there."
Well, but I'm curious how you get them there, because often clients don't have the language to fully articulate, right, what they really want, and I'm going to ask that of you too, Tara.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you have to. It takes a lifetime of noticing traits and behaviors in people as to who has just come before you and who's just sat down in front of you. How did they enter the room? Were they on time? How did they treat each other? What's going on here? And what is this whole thing for? Like, why is this thing that we're doing happening? And what is it to the rest of their story? And the fact that for me, I am entering the movie of their life in scene 72, Inner Architect. And I have a short run in the film, doing it, but it's a shapely one, potentially. So I really have to read between the lines. If they don't have the language, and most don't really can totally express it, you have to pick up on the nuances and listen to the silences and the gaps, the posturing, the whole thing, to kind of know. And while you're listening and while they're in front of you, little characters inside of you are flipping their little IBM memory ball kind of keys, and you are picking up on what is the DNA of this couple, these people that are in front of you, and this project. And that is the most valuable information and it's different from all the information that preceded it, because it's a different combination of things that you're striking. And it is very often the back row pupil within yourself that has never gotten to raise their hand yet, your whole life, until they showed up. And now that little character knows them. And then that is your God.
Wow, right? Yeah. Well, it's so interesting because some of my new friends in the audience were asking about, again, when you start off with a client and sort of looking for the signals, the messages, the red flags, are these people going to be able to go the distance? And am I going to want to go the distance with them? What do you look for? What do you see when you start with even possible clients, Tara, along those lines?
So I enter in at scene 73, right behind Bobby. So hopefully, scene 72 is going to be fabulous. And I think my first assessment, we never charge for the first assessment, the meeting, the talks. I want to hear whether they want to spend 30 minutes with me or they want to spend 3 hours with me explaining how they got to this juncture. So I'm trying to hear. And then just like Bobby said, I'm waiting for those clues that I get, the things that I hear them say that made them the happiest, or what they're looking for, or why they purchased this property or built this property. I'm listening for the heart's desire, and I'm trying to then amass that. I'm just never off the cuff in a meeting, because I take days to process what I've just heard, because I feel our first presentation right out of the box needs to be meaningful and really address all the things that they've talked about in that meeting. Now, I have Hannah on the front row here. She's a design assistant. And I also have Julia Morris. Raise your hand, Julia. So Julia was a design assistant for me in New Orleans and now moved to Atlanta. But it's working with this team that we have, and it's trying to be a good teacher, I think, because I don't know if what I have heard, if they heard the same thing. And then it's laying the foundation for that so we can then go back to the client with proposals. But do we go the distance? Sometimes we don't go the distance.
Why not? What happened? What happens along the way?
I don't want to be a marriage counselor. I'm not about being
well,
there.
then you chose the wrong profession, I'm afraid.
So I feel that we are as selective with our clients as possibly the clients are selecting us, because I want to hear the story. Not everybody is for me, but I want to be part of the story and hear. But so sometimes we turn things down, and sometimes we say, I think you might be better off with somebody else. So I've done that. Have you jumped out in
Yeah, exactly.
the middle of a relationship?
I have, and
Tell us about it.
But the true professional monster you can't detect until you're in it too deep, and you can't.
Really?
You're in.
This
too
sounds
deep.
scary.
There's no way out, and you're stuck.
Because some people are so good at pretending that there's something
yes, but
else.
the amateur, you get to where you can kind of look for the red flags, and you might see them. And depending on what you're hungry to do, or how hungry you are, you might ignore the red flags. You might say, "Sure, fine, I'm great. I can master this." So what if they're don't make any sense?
So
But
tell me.
that's rarely the truth.
Right.
That you can.
So what's a red flag that someone that someone demonstrates, that someone shows you? What's a real red flag that makes you think, ooh, I better pull out of this. This person's not for me.
Well, I've got one going on right now where
Well, how timely. Let's
that
discuss.
it's baited to do a house in a wonderful location. It could be wonderful, and they have canceled the first 3 meetings very shortly, right before the meeting. And in some cases, I've flown
No.
to somewhere.
And then they cancel the meeting once you've...
Or I have driven here from Alabama for the meeting, and then they cancel like 2 hours before. You know, and so you think, you might want to listen.
That might
to
tell you
what's
something
going
about who they
on,
are.
because that's your future.
That's
you know.
So are you on the fence now about this person? Are we staying with this person? Is this client that...
I think I'm more curious than I am on the fence.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Tara, what about you?
I think I saw the red flags. Like Bobby, I was curious, and the inability to make a decision. I was on a project over 4 years, and this fabulous ground-up project, and I could have completed that project in 1.5 years, 2 years, and that is probably one of the biggest hurdles, or not answering in a timely manner. You know, I feel like we put so much time and effort into what we do on the interior, and you quickly have to respond, I would say, because if a product is not coming from me or coming from somebody else, you don't want to leave someone hanging. I mean, that is not professional. You need to commit or move on so they can have the opportunity to sell something. But yes, you get a lot of, I feel like I've gotten red flags at the beginning, and I've proceeded on because I was curious, or I thought the project would be fabulous and
Worth it somehow?
Yeah, photographing.
Right. Sure.
So that's the end game.
Yeah. So you tell yourself you can get through it
You
because
can
you're going to
get-
get these
yes.
great photographs of
Right.
the project. You're going to have it on your website. You'll be able to show it and talk about it.
Right.
And it's going to be worth it. Is it worth it though, Bobby? Is it worth it?
Most of the time.
Okay.
It is most of the time.
Okay.
Right.
But, you know, I've had, I had one in the last few years that I really accused in my own mind of, they just simply never wanted it to end. Because once it ended, their life looked bleak to them.
Wow. It is tough out there.
Yeah.
I can imagine not wanting time with you to end, though, Bobby. I'm looking at my watch feeling that way myself, actually, already. Speaking of which, and I'm going to plant a seed that we're going to open this up for questions in a few minutes, maybe, if I've gotten to the point of this whole conversation, which the people in the front row tell me I absolutely have to get to the delivering on the soul part of the conversation. So I'm getting to that, okay? I'm getting to that. But just like, if you have questions, think of them by all means. And TikTok, I've got to get to this soul thing, Tara, okay? Because I'm told that not every panel has delivered on the title. And apparently, I'm under a lot of pressure to do that. So let's get back to getting close enough to these clients, having them be willing to be open enough with you to really let you in and see what does light up their soul and how you can do that for someone. How do you do it?
Well, it takes time. You know, it's you're actually, I entered on, you know, stage 73, and now I'm part of that journey, and it's my job to bring it home to stage 100, you know, to cross that finish line. So initially, I find some people are an open book, and then some people are not quite what they seem when they were introduced to you as that open book, but I think as you journey on, they get more and more comfortable with you. And I find that when you're working on a large project, when you start installing and the installs are going well and it is better than they imagined, that's when you really have the entree. And the guards come down and you understand more of the personality of the client and they start trusting you. I think it's a huge trust issue initially when you're dealing with that much money. And, you know, we're like, Bobby, you'd like to put a number on that, but I couldn't really put a number on that until we've journeyed through this process and I'm seeing what you're really attracted to. Because without understanding that, there's it's nebulous, you know. So it's all about trust and them feeling comfortable with you and being honest with you. And I think that's where you get to drive home across the finish line, is when the relationship has relaxed. And, you know, some people don't want to end the relationship. They might, you know, go on and buy another home in another city. And, you know, that starts another journey. On some families, we've worked on like 7 projects. And I thought, you know, that is validating to me. Because, you know, as a designer, I'm looking for validation constantly. You know, in the presentation or in the conversation, and then being just invited to go on another journey is the most important part, is to continue that relationship. That's where I get validity.
So the trust building really sounds like it is this ongoing process where you're really proving yourself over and over again to this client. And therefore, they're finally opening up to you more and more. One of the things that you said to me recently, Bobby, that I thought was so interesting, to Tara's point about sort of multiple homes, you pointed out to me that often that first home or that main home might be a house that they're building somewhat for their parents' approval or their friends' approval, but it might not be where they're really expressing themselves, and maybe it's that, and bless their hearts, that they have the lake house or the mountain house, but often those are the properties that are really more personal to them and where they do open up more?
I think absolutely. I think for a lot of people, their primary residence is the first house they build. And they're younger on the chart at that point doing it. And I do think a lot of expectation comes with it. How do I look to my friends and family? Do I look successful? You know, how do I appear? And that is the opposite way that you look at a second home. A second home is about telling the truth about what you really do. And when you build that truth, your heart leaves that house in town and it totally plops down at that house that knows you well. And I think if you had the chance to do the in-town house again, it would change it, because I think it would be more accurate to who you really are. And hopefully you've gotten a little older and a little braver, and you're willing to sit next to somebody and tell them the truth instead of what they want to hear. And I think building the truth is the thing. You know, it's the thing that has the it factor that will make it stick. If it is absolutely the truth about you, then he won't have all of those other things that are not the truth. So it takes editing, you know, in your life, and to know how to do that, and how to be bold enough to show up as yourself.
That's good.
Yeah. Write that down. Write that. You like that, Tara?
I do. I love everything about it.
Well, but it's fascinating, Bobby, that what it sounds like partially what you're saying is that they have to go through that process of that first home, perhaps, and all the feelings that go along with it, and then get to know themselves a little bit better, become a little wiser with age and time, and then maybe they have a better sense of who they are and what. So maybe that first house is that beige house. Maybe, yes, and then they're
Maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think so. Or it's a doll house
Yeah. Yeah.
that had enough rooms that you got a chance to decorate, to that it'd be great fun. Maybe that.
Yeah. Do people show up, Tara, with you more fully formed, or are they still in that early stage where they don't know themselves well enough yet?
Well, we're working on 3 new builds now, but a lot of times we are dealing with a home that is existing. I don't know if, like Bobby's therapy of building a home, I don't know that I really get that aspect a lot of times. And because they've inherited it or purchased that for a reason in a neighborhood that was appealing to them. So I don't know if I really get the whole evolution of the person because they're not doing a ground up, and they don't. Sometimes they come fully formed as they. What I love about the journey of design is they find out who they are through their choices. And we hope to elevate those choices and the journey because they wouldn't have been able to take that journey without us. So,
Do people understand and fully appreciate how much their life is going to change, Bobby, when they really have this home that makes them feel at peace the way you've been describing?
I think they want it to change. I think that's why it's very rare that someone coming to me to build their house asks me to come to their house. They don't want me to see where they live because that is not what they want. And they don't want to be depicted that way. They don't even want to start out of the gate with that information. Now, some people who are more curated, they have lived a life of consideration in terms of design, may want me there. And it is important in that instance. But in the majority of the time, it's people who don't recognize their life and they want to. And so through how much information there is out there on Tara and on my business, we're not getting, total strays coming at us. We're getting people who've done their due diligence. By the time they ring the phone, they've walked around the coffee table a few hundred times already thinking, is this the person I need to be calling? Because they're not really up for the rejection either. They don't want to get it wrong. And so when they call, the likelihood is really high that they are the right person. We are well paired, already. But I'll say also, as someone who has practiced both architecture and interiors and both businesses from both sides, being an interior designer, I think, is infinitely harder than being an architect. When you are the architect, there's a certain amount of intimidation that exists within that discipline that holds people at bay just a little bit. But when you are decorating their house, they will treat you any kind of way.
Can you attest to that, Tara? Can you?
yes. Yes, I would be naming cities, but, they might be tuning into this podcast. So I'm going to eliminate some of those. So, yes, I've had it both ways, where people will exalt you, and then people with castles in Scotland might demean you. I'm just saying. It's gone both ways.
Yeah. And do you find that the architect gets a little bit more reverence, a little bit more respect?
It
Oh,
definitely.
it seems to get you quite worked up, actually. Okay.
Definitely
Okay.
on a pedestal.
Yeah, on a
and
pedestal.
Especially when you come with a pedigree like this.
I
I mean,
know.
just look at that. Look at the homes he's done, and then you will immediately be silenced in that meeting because you've come to learn. You've come for his help. I mean, he's like the doctor you've sought your whole life, and you finally got the appointment.
I think that's how we're all feeling, right? Like he's the doctor that we've wanted, and we finally got the appointment. Now, let me just see if we're going to come around with a microphone if someone does have a question, and I don't want to steamroll over someone if they want to ask a question. Does someone have a question at the moment? Because if not, I've got one, and I can quickly jump in. But okay, well, here comes the microphone, and we will hear your question.
Okay, so I had to write it down. First of all, thank you. We're honored to be here.
Love your
presence.
preparation. Thank you.
So the design industry has become so accessible. I'm just wondering how you handle clients that come to you with their Pinterest pictures, Instagram, other designers' photos. They want to change things every meeting, and they might want to change things last minute. My question is, how do you address this, or do you have policies up front regarding this?
So I welcome that.
Oh, she loves that. Sure.
I welcome that. I smile and I look at all of those photos.
Tolerates it, I think is the word.
And because it's painting the picture of what is good to them. And what I want to bring to the table is so far elevated from that, I think, that it's going to be a game changer for them. But what that does is it just shows me where they are. And, we talk about money up front and budgets up front because you don't want to get in a relationship where they do not have enough money for what you're trying to do there. So I welcome it. I smile. They leave.
Politely, sure.
I'm Southern. We talk about it, when they leave, and we talk about how we can make that better,
Right, but on the flip side,
On the flip side, at Bobby's office, it's a much more mature handling.
very often I would say that I like it about as much as your doctor likes it when you tell him you've Googled your condition.
So there you have it. There you have it. Yeah. But it does, to your point, and again, in fairness, not everybody has the language. Not everyone knows how to articulate what they want. And maybe the Pinterest images is a way of at least getting that conversation started, right? And in fairness to them. Now, Bobby, so among these fabulous images that you're seeing, some of them are Bobby's actual homes. And Bobby said to me, well, I couldn't use my homes to get clients because they wouldn't come and work with me if they saw those. But tell me what you mean by that, and then I'll jump in and disagree. You go ahead.
Well, I think you're seeing the two homes that I live in with my partner, Blake Weeks, and they are exactly both of us. We are 50-50 on contributing to how weird it might get, or how brave we may go with the solution, on it. And so, in that scenario, we're not selling anybody this thing, And
The big rhinoceros, you're not selling
so
that.
we're a little more full throttle and willing to fail, on the kind of things that we do, and so. And nothing else would do, really, for us.
So you feel that they're more experimental, perhaps, than most people would want, or you're willing to take bigger chances?
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, for a film producer, it's just the next movie. It's not your last. And it's
Hopefully.
not the movie of all movies. It's just your next film, you know. And in that degree, it is a laboratory and it is an experiment
Yeah.
to see if what you suspected and thought was in fact the thing that you hoped it would be.
Does anyone else have a question, or because I'll bring it back if we don't. And don't be shy. I mean, as you see, we're pretty okay. Here we go. We'll bring that microphone right over here. Yeah. I don't want you to miss this opportunity to get to ask these two a question.
Well, I bet I speak for a lot of people in here. I'd like to know more about the discussion on budgets with clients, you know, because I think that's something that is difficult, you know, to have, and it's something you got to have, and it's hard to know what the project's going to cost, like you were saying, because you really don't know what items you're going to be buying, and I would just like to have some education on how you handle that and how you discuss what a project, if they're wanting to know what's this project going to cost from an interior design point of view, how do you have that conversation?
Well, I talk about what they want to achieve and what they want it to look like and what their time frame is. And then I start talking about money. We talk about money freely in our office because really without it, you don't get a good project. And if they say we always say, so what do you think your budget will be on this project? And they will throw out a number, and then, you know, I'll have an honest answer saying, I don't believe I can achieve that for that. So I think where I've gotten into trouble when I first started design was I had clients that had no budgets. And then I got through a period where other people would see me in magazines and they'd want to hire from that, and they didn't have the same type of budget. And I didn't know how to really express that and say, I cannot achieve that. Or, now let's face it, you're going to put in the same amount of time on a $50,000 room as you are on, let's say, a $250,000 room. It's all a time issue for me. So if I have to see at that time what I'm valuing. Is my time? Do I have enough time? Can I give that to a junior designer to run that and come in at that budget? And would I even want to take that on? Because it's a relationship, it's a journey to take them across the finish line. And that's always a question to myself, does this home or this project intrigue me enough to put in the time? Because we all know whatever the budget is, you're putting in that same amount of time for that project.
Good point.
Bobby, are there budgets in your world?
I hate that question.
Right? That's a red flag right there. If they have a budget, it's a big red flag for Bobby. That is a real concern. Yeah. So no, he doesn't really have that conversation. Oh, do we have one more question? Okay, one more, and then we'll get to the brownies upstairs in the Century showroom. So, come. Yes.
Do you think the wording makes a difference when you're talking money with the client?
Did it what? What's
the
that?
wording. Should we say budget? I typically try to kind of like manipulate the
Great point.
question.
Can we come up with some better
budget.
terminology?
I
Maybe that's the
always say,
problem. Okay.
what are you willing to invest? This is your property. You know.
Oh, that's
I mean,
good.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
my-
we like
that
that.
matters.
Yeah.
Does that matter?
Was that your question? Or you're going to help us with the wording on budget? Okay. No. Excellent.
Asking,
No.
I mean,
helpful.
do you think,
No.
you know,
Very good. Thank
the
you.
word manipulation?
Yeah. No, we appreciate that.
I mean-
Maybe if they think of it as an investment, which it is.
It is an investment.
Right? Probably one of the biggest investments they'll
That's
ever
right.
make in their lives. Right? Yeah. No, I think so. That's actually very helpful. We're gonna stop saying budget. We're done with that word because that's just holding people back and getting people upset. So let's not.
Sure.
Why
Well,
even say that?
the truth of all of that is,
Yeah.
is that it's hard to swallow an elephant.
Yeah.
You know, you might create someone who makes a client-shaped hole in the wall, you know, getting away from you. You know, once you just dump that all in their lap in one lump, and they've never done this before, and they don't know it. Some of the expense, I can tell you from personal experience, that I've done some beautiful things, and Blake and I have done some beautiful things, that had we known what it was going to cost, we probably would never have done them.
But they make us so happy
But
today,
at
don't they,
the same
Blake?
time, I wouldn't take anything for having done them.
That's right.
Wouldn't take anything from it. And so how much can you swallow?
Yes.
And it's not that you're trying to not tell the whole truth as you know it, but it's also unfair for you to think that your client can handle it either.
Yeah.
And so it's a gentle subject,
Yeah.
don't you think?
Yeah.
No, it is.
I mean,
It
and
is.
you try to tell the truth as best you know it,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know, and it's hard to keep up with it.
Yeah.
Really.
And so much of this is a gentle subject that you've got to, right, be delicate with in all of this. Sadly, friends, we have run out of time. So as much as I would love to stay here with all of you and hear more from the two of them, would you please join me in thanking our incredible panelists today? And thank you all so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned some things. Again, I'm going to mention brownies upstairs in the Century Showroom. So that's where I'll be. I hope I'll see a lot of you there. Thank you again.